Singaporeans don't protest about us not having minimum wage. Singaporeans don't protest about us not having independent labour unions. Whereas the PAP, they will go to the parliament and complain about how they are not being paid high enough, that $2.2 million is not enough as their salary. After the SNCC, we protest against a lot of things. We protest against water. Now, they increase it by 30%. 30% means what? It means that businesses will have an increase of almost $25 every month. But what kind of businesses? Small businesses. What about big businesses? And who are they going to pass the cost down to? The carbon tax. Who are they going to pass the cost down to? The next issue is that household will have an increase of $18. 3 out of 4 households, or 75% of households in Singapore, will see an increase of $18 every month. 25% will see an increase of more than $18 every month. But do Singaporeans say anything about it? No. Singaporeans keep quiet. Singaporeans stay silent because they think that if they were to complain about this, they will lose the rebate that the PAP will give. Singaporeans believe that if they were to step forward and say something or do something, then things bad will happen to them. Even opposition in Singapore dare not oppose the government. But when PAP was the opposition, they were very proud of being an opposition. In fact, the first Prime Minister of Singapore said, as the opposition, if I do not oppose every single thing, then what is my point of being an opposition? Some people are concerned. They say, you talk so much, but so what? You can't stand for election. The point is, how many Singaporeans can be sure that in the next election, Singaporeans will get so fed up with all this policy that in the next election, all Singaporeans will vote for the opposition, and the opposition will definitely be in power in the next election. Singaporeans are afraid. They will not dare to vote for the opposition. You may see a swing, at most a 20% swing. But how many GRC, how many SMC will become that of the opposition? Nobody can be sure. Why? Because when we were fighting the return our CPF court trial, there were activists, opposition, testimony being given and testified in court. Saying what? Saying that the opposition was never part of the CPF protest. The witnesses testified in court, saying that they have never wanted to come to a CPF event and were just people who happened to pass by, who happened to hold flag, who happened to wave cards, to wave the flag, to wave the flag cards, to blow the whistle. How many dare to say, yes, I spoke at the CPF event. Yes, I'm against Singapore's CPF system. No. When we were protesting against the education system, people stepped forward and they say, I don't like Singapore's education system. Because they didn't went to JC, they went to Poly, they went to ITE. But right after a police investigation, right after the doors were closed, what happened? A dropout from the worst polytechnic in Singapore can suddenly go into a law course and suddenly be guaranteed lawyer as a future. With that, what kind of lies can this kind of person say in court? All kinds of lies. They can even message and tell you that Singapore's court, every single one has been paid by the PAP, and that the court is just a kangaroo court. They can even say that the kangaroo court will definitely make us guilty. And the judges can even be people who sit on the same bench, be it from the High Court or from the State Court. People who sit on the same bench saying that no, I agree with my friend, therefore the trial will be dismissed. Right on the same day, without any break, without any research, without doing any judgment, but just dismissing it. This is why only in Singapore you can see a judge say that you are guilty, all because of one Facebook post. one Facebook posting and one is guilty. And just because you step on concrete, how many times have we stepped on concrete to go to the toilet? How many times have we stepped on concrete to come here? But for that, it is only in Singapore you can be charged and found guilty for stepping on concrete. All other countries in this world practice freedom of speech, freedom of assembly. Then people will say, why don't you migrate elsewhere? Why do we always hear them telling us migrate elsewhere? Why don't the PAP be the ones who migrate elsewhere? They won't. Because it is only in Singapore they will get a salary of $2.2 million. If they were to migrate elsewhere, who will pay them even $2? But in Singapore, $2 can get you a lot of things. Because $1,000 can get you a flat, and $2 can get you AIM. What's AIM? AIDS. Who remember the corruption? At Ang Mo Kio there was corruption. And then what happened? All they need to do is to get Lee Hsien Loong go overseas. When Lee Hsien Loong is gone, they will say he's not involved. Shouldn't he be the one in charge of his own town council? Or is he the one who is involved in the corruption as well? And once he left Singapore, how do they distract Singapore? By getting someone, the same person who picked up the leaf from the ground, the same person who waved empty blocks of HDB, to make a posting saying that collecting cardboard is healthy. Collecting cardboard is what the elderly want. And the whole internet started debating on whether the newspaper was 1 kg, 5 kg, 10 kg or 50 kg. But was that supposed to be the issue? That is not supposed to be the issue. The issue is that there is corruption at Ang Mo Kio. The issue is that the Prime Minister can't even handle his own town council. But by simply having someone posting a news about the newspaper auntie and making a news about the weight of the newspaper, the entire country, all Singaporeans started to get so easily distracted. They lost the core of the focus. How many of us know that Lee Hsien Loong is still the chairman of GIC? How many of us know that his wife is still handling Temasek? And every single time we get distracted, every single month, every single year we are being distracted. The money goes into their pockets. You may say, no, they did not go in. How sure are you? They have chairman, they have directorship, they have dividends, they collect salary, they collect administrative fund, they collect their bonuses. The money does go into their pockets. Some people say, maybe I do not want all of my CPF to be returned to me. If you do not want all of your CPF to be returned to you, what about the interest? It is only in Singapore. We get the interest to be at 2.5%. They may say you can get as much as 3.5%, but under what condition? How many of you have read the terms and conditions as to how your CPF return is being made to you? Do you know that if you go to financial institute and you invest money, and the money that is being returned, they will all be returned to you? At most, they can only keep a maximum of 1%, or maybe just 0.5% or so as their profit. But only in Singapore, the amount that they can collect from our CPF and the interest that is being earned is in the form of billions of dollars. And these billions of dollars are not being returned to the people. These are the money that they have earned using your CPF money. These are the money that they have earned even after deducting the administrative procedure. And all this money are being kept by them. The money are not being returned to you. Is this fair? They say, our pledge states that we are a democratic society based on justice and equality. Are we really a democratic society? They are brainwashing the education system and telling the young that as long as we get to vote once every 5 years, that is democracy. Are you sure that is democracy? When we go overseas, we admire other countries. But why don't we make Singapore into a country that other people will admire? We can't. Because we have a population right now that thinks that PAP is everything. They think that if the PAP falls, their livelihood will be gone. But think about it, if the PAP falls, if let's say another MP was to resign, will the country fall? No. Because we survive based on the civil and public sector. As long as the people continue working, the country can function as a whole. The next issue, they say we have justice in Singapore. We have equality in Singapore. Do you know that there are a lot of young people who go through theft and get locked up in Singapore? This Wednesday, when I went in the morning, around 11 plus 12 o'clock, I was the 21st female from Singapore High Court. There are 20 females before me, and this excludes people from family court, from juvenile court, from state court. Every single day, there are at least 45 cases of theft in Singapore. People steal all kinds of things. Children stealing stationery, parents stealing milk powder. These are real statistics that is given by the government themselves. And every single month, there are at least 4,000 people being sent to one division of the prison. But how many prison divisions do we have in Singapore? How many prisons do we have in Singapore? It's not just Changi Prison. Right below our court is an entire building of prisons as well. Right below our court, the underground passageway. Whenever we enter the court, we see those spiral staircase goes down. When we ask, what is it? They don't tell us. They say there's nothing. If there's nothing, why do they go down? If there's nothing, why do they come up? Below is an entire building of prisons. For vans, for police cars, for criminals, for inmates, even children get shackled. When one of the photo of one toddler gets shackled was being shared in Singapore, people say that is just a one-time incident. That is not true. When people told me that Amos was shackled and that his hand was all red, I thought, is that true? Until I experienced it myself. Yes, the shackle itself is very heavy. And not only that, it's made out of sharp metal. So if you try to struggle, it will cut your wrist. And if you don't struggle, it will just make your entire hand become red because blood cannot flow through. So this is what they do. And not only I was shackled, teenagers were shackled. When I was first sent in, I was sent into a juvenile court and locked together with the juveniles. There were people as young as 16 years old, 14 years old. They were all locked inside. And I asked them, shouldn't you be in school? They told me, the reason why they are not in school is because they have to work. Why are young kids working instead of studying? And then we keep giving free scholarships to foreigners come to Singapore. And these foreigners collect our scholarship, collect our money, and they run our country. What is wrong with the education system that caused our young fellow Singaporeans not to be educated, to have to resort to theft? And when I asked them, are you afraid? Is this your first time here? They say, no, that's not their first time. Inside, they have been dealing with drugs, everything. When people say that drug industry is rampant in Singapore, that is true. When people make documentaries about going Geylang to find drugs, that is true. In fact, what are the top 5 locations you can find drugs in Singapore? You can find them in Jurong, you can find them in Geylang, you can find them in Bugis, you can find them in Changi, and you can find them at Orchard, especially Clarke Quay too, at all the parks. It is so easy for people to have drug abuse in Singapore. But people will say, oh, if that's the case, then we should have a high statistic for drug abuse. In fact, the statistic for drug abuse is so high, they don't even dare to review it. The only thing they dare to review is that a lot of these abusers are below the age of 30 years old. And this is not a statistic that we pulled from the air. It is a statistic given by the government and reported in the news. This morning, a lot of foreign media started contacting me, telling me that their servers were attacked. That any photos or videos about our case were all being removed. In fact, people who have shared our posting have got your posting being removed as well. And we know that happened last night. And this morning, it was the foreign media whose servers got attacked. It was very obvious because they only delete our photos and our videos. All other news were still available on their sites. Why do they have to resort to this? The thing is, what we Singaporeans want is just to have the right to exercise our freedom of speech, freedom of expression. What we want is just a country that knows how to care for the people. But now we have an increase in water tax and they don't tell us what is it for. They say there's an increase in cost, but there's no revelation of how much is the increase in cost. They say that they need to cover because their revenue was not enough, but they didn't say what their revenue was. And they are making profit every year. What does it mean that their revenue is not enough? Does it mean that their revenue is not enough to give dividends to their shareholders and directors? Our carbon tax is increasing. Our water tax is increasing. Parking fees, bus fare, all are increasing. The cost of living for Singaporeans generally are all increasing. The only thing that is decreasing is the fighting spirit in Singaporeans. Because Singaporeans are no longer fighting. Many people have given up. Many people have simply migrated elsewhere. But this is the Singapore that we were born, we were grow up in. I spent more than 20 years of my life in Tanjong Pagar Radin Mas SMC. I spent my whole kindergarten, primary school, secondary school, going through the system, JC, etc. And I saw, and I know, that this Singapore is the Singapore I want my children to grow up in. But this system is not the system that I want my children to experience. Would you want your children to go to school only to know how to praise the PAP? Would you want your children to go to school and have all the childcare that is so expensive that you have no choice but to go to the PAP's childcare? And when you go to the PAP's childcare, all they do is to shake hands with the minister, to the MPs, and learn how to respect them and praise them like as though they are demigods. Is this the kind of system that you want your children to grow up in, where even unemployment rate is increasing, but there's no welfare and no help and no assistance being given to people who are unemployed? They say they will give a second chance, but they're not giving Singaporeans any chance at all. If Singaporeans dare to complain, your job will be given to foreigners. As for those police who used to be against us, look at all their jobs now. Are they sure they are still police? Maybe yes. Maybe those police who took up our case. Maybe the investigation officer of our case, Samantha, she was promoted and now she's leading a troop at Cantonment Police Complex. Maybe the lawyer who took our case up is now the Chief Deputy Public Prosecutor in Singapore. To have a government to hire the top 4 lawyers in Singapore to sue you, to charge you, to go against you. To have a government to spend money to get the top 4 lawyers to fight against Singaporeans who are elderly, unemployed, not legally trained, without any legal aid. Is this the kind of justice and equality Singaporeans should have? Is this the kind of justice and equality that Singaporeans say they want to have? You may say nobody asked you to fight the government. Nobody asked you to do this, nobody asked you to do that. And this is precisely what the PAP is very smart in doing. They know that nobody will stand up. They know that nobody will speak up. They know that nobody will step forward. Which is why they have been in power. Which is why they can do corruption. Which is why for $2 they can open an AIM company. Which is why they know even if there's corruption in their town council, even if they themselves screw up, even if they themselves have personal indiscretion, which is just simply adultery. Just say it's adultery. then what kind of moral values these people have? What kind of concerns? What kind of sympathy or empathy they have towards Singaporeans? It has been more than 50 years. And in the next election, we are not going to see any change. Because Singaporeans can't be bothered. Every single election in Singapore, more than half the candidates are new candidates. And of those new candidates, almost every single one are last-minute candidates. We need Singaporeans to step forward right now. We need Singaporeans to tell the public what exactly is wrong with our system. If we are always going to wait for election, wait for 5 years, wait for polling days, wait until one day I'm going to get my CPF, wait until I'm 55 years old, then by then it's too late. From now to 55 years old, I'm 35 now. And by the time I'm 55, that's another 30 years. If every year the PAP is going to increase $10,000, 30 years, that's $300,000. Are you sure our salary will increase? Have you ever seen that the government says that from now on, this year, every single person will have a 30% increase in your salary? No, they never say that. Have they ever said that your salary will be kept as the minister because we the minister treat you as equal? Have they ever said they are going to raise the salary of the people to $2.2 million? No. Have they ever said that they are going to set a good example and put their salary at $1,000? No. They only know how to say that to Singaporeans, but they themselves lead another double standard. They tell us that healthcare is cheap, but can they guarantee that if we were to have a heart bypass, it will just be $8? Can they guarantee if any Singaporean experience stroke, there will be 3 doctors down there taking care of them to say that Singapore's healthcare and doctors are top quality and good? Can they guarantee that if Singaporeans can't get a place in local university and can't go elsewhere, they will make sure they tweak the system, just like how they tweak the system in order for their own son to get scholarship. From one scholarship position, they open up a few, and they even added in interviews. That is up to them to decide who will get a scholarship, just so their own child can get it, just so their own children can get it. Will they do the same for Singaporeans? No, they won't. They leave it to Singaporeans to fight for yourself. They leave it for Singaporeans to fight for ourselves. They don't see us as the same. They don't see us as one united people. They see us as one group of slaves, one population of slaves for them to exploit. If you don't want to take this job, someone else will take it. In fact, the entire Singapore judiciary system has only one Singaporean taking me down, and after they have handed all my belongings, every single person was a foreigner. Which is why they are asking, can we allow foreigners to take this job because Singaporeans don't want it? Are you sure Singaporeans don't want to get jobs? Are you sure Singaporeans don't want to work as cleaner? If you give a cleaner $2.2 million, if you give a cleaner $2,000, will they take the job? It is not that Singaporeans don't want to work. It is not that Singaporeans don't want to get a job. It is because they are not giving Singaporeans the right wages that will sustain our cost of living. So a lot of Singaporeans, in the end, they resort to theft, which explain the 4,000 inmates per division, which explain the 45 and above, at least 45 cases of theft every single day. Every single day has 45 theft, which means when you walk out and you see Sheng Siong, Cold Storage, NTUC outside having signboards saying that people steal things, those statistics may even be lowered. Why? Because once you are being caught shoplifting, they actually give you the option, saying that you are kind, they believe in second chance, and ask you to pay. If you pay for it, only then they will not arrest you. So a lot of people pay for it if they are being caught. But if they are not being caught, they will just take the goods back home because their family needs it. And there are people who get caught, mothers who have just given birth. They get caught, they say, please, I want you to give all this milk powder for my husband to bring back home. because I need to feed my child who is a newborn. But you can bring me to prison because that parent has lost a child. And that parent would rather eat what is in the prison than to go back home and nurse her own child. Can you imagine how many single mothers in Singapore do that? Can you imagine how many mothers even do that when they have a husband outside? Just because one single parent income is not able to feed an entire family. They tell us that birth rate is low. They tell us it is because Singaporeans choose not to. Do you know that marriage rate in Singapore has dropped from in the past out of 10 Singaporeans, 6-7 Singaporeans will get married. But now, only 4 Singaporeans will get married. 2 to locals, 2 to foreigners. And that 2 Singaporeans who get married to locals, one of them will have a divorce. Mainly because of money. Is this what Singapore's society has become? A society that has resort to stealing. A society where the government steals from the people and the people try to steal from the corporation only to end up in jail. Is Singapore a society whereby Singaporeans get displaced, jobs are being lost to foreigners, and Singaporeans simply do nothing because they think that the ComCare will help them, because they think that 7% GST helps the poor. And the GST is going to be increasing to maybe 10%. But is it really going to help the poor? Does it mean that if the poor go and buy chicken rice, it's $3, and the rich go and buy chicken rice, they will ask, oh, you are richer, so you need to pay GST. Is that the case? Does it mean that the GST the poor is paying for the $3 plate of rice is lower than the GST that the rich is paying? No. They are paying the same amount of GST. So you are taking more money from the poor. You are not helping the people at all. Why don't this government think about how to help the employment rate to be better, so that we don't have to change the statistics and pretend that unemployment rate in Singapore is low, where we simply excluded so many people and included so many part-timers? Why do we have to skew statistics in such a way that we can't even say who are Singaporeans and who are PRs? Why must we call them residents? Why can't we know what is the exact situation that Singaporeans are facing now? And they won't reveal. The only way for Singaporeans to really get back your country, instead of a company that's being run by the PAP, is for you to step forward. You need to voice out and you need to know that you are the one working. You are the one who contributed to the growth of the society, not them. You shouldn't let the PAP continue to dictate your life. I may not be able to stand for election, but I can still speak up. I can still write. I can still share. They can delete my posting. They can remove my articles. They can even attack the servers of foreign media who try to share our posting. But if, let's say, every Singaporean out there is to write about the truth of what is happening in Singapore, if every Singaporean out there is going to write about your own salary, your own housing payment, your increase in water bill, your increase in SSCC, the parking fees that you have to pay, the carbon tax that's been brought down and made for you to pay, if Singaporeans out there can talk about how they are unable to reach their minimum sum, about how the healthcare bills are expensive, if Singaporeans out there can talk about how they have to sell their house in order to retire, how they have to sell their house and resort to living in a smaller house, or even resort to living in rental flats just so they can survive in Singapore's economy, in Singapore's society, then our country will have a chance to survive. The opposition will have a chance to win the election. But will this happen in the next election? Will this happen if there's a snap election? The answer is very clear. It's no. Because we need at least 10 years to educate the public. Therefore, the decision of whether you want your Singapore to be a better Singapore starts from you and starts from today. Thank you.